Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Speaking Sessions podcast. I've got James Golden here. He got his start within the world of business, consulting, and entrepreneurship at the age of 19, the ripe old age of 19. What started out as a part-time job, he turned into a 23-year career and passion for helping municipalities across the US save tax dollars, maximize their annual budget, and increase the conditions of their roadways. When he is not advocating for roadway preservation, James enjoys helping others in the constant pursuit of becoming the best version of themselves through his Good to Golden, which is a play on his last name. I love it because I do the same thing. But Good to Golden podcasting, personal, and group coaching initiative. James is an awesome guy. I've known him for a couple years now. We finally met actually about a year and a half ago in person, and it was awesome. It just felt like long lost friends meeting each other. But James, I'm glad to have you on the podcast.
Man, thank you so much, man. I'm pumped to be here. It's been a long time coming. You get them scheduling conflicts. I know we've been trying to get together on this side of the house, man. So I'm pumped to be here, man. I appreciate the opportunity. I love what you're doing on this side of the house because we all know that public speaking is like everyone's worst fear. So how awesome is it you, my friend, are out there leading the way, like I say, paving the way, right?
Right.
In this category, man. So hey, happy to be here, man. Add some value to your audience and go all in on it, man.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of like fear of public speaking, how did you get over that fear of public speaking? I mean, talking to municipalities and government officials, that sounds pretty scary. So, how did you overcome the fear of public speaking?
Man, dude, that's a great question. And you're right. Shit, man. You get up in front of stage, in front of your industry and your peers, and some of that stuff can be scary. And then, you wake up one day and realize that, man, I'm being streamed live on Facebook, analyzing
Mm,
my results. I'm on YouTube Live. You know what I mean? In front of these council meetings and town hall meetings and stuff like that. So here's the long and short of it, man. I got over my fear of public speaking by being thrown to the fire. You
mm,
know, I'm old school, man. I'm 44 now. So, you mentioned being 19. So when I got into this industry, I was very fortunate to work under a civil engineer for about 13 years. And at age 19, this dude just threw me out there, said, "Hey, go look at the pavement, follow the book, right? Document the results, and then we'll talk about it." And then just slowly but surely, I just kept always asking questions. I wanted to learn more, learn more, learn more. And that kind of evolved into like, okay, well, what are you doing with the data after I give it to you, right? And that kind of led to, what's this city council meeting that you said you were going to go to? We're having lunch or something. It's like, oh, I got to go
mm,
present the findings. I got to go talk to the public about this. I'm like, well, can I go? You know, Wanted to
mm.
learn. So I just kind of tagged along in my early 20s, right? And then where it really started for me was my boss. I was 25 years old, and we had this opportunity to lead. Think of like we would call it a workshop today. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I don't think we had a real term for it. 20 years ago, whatever. But it was about 40 people in a room, and he said I thought I was attending the damn thing. No, he said, "Hey, you're going to speak for the first 2 hours on how to inspect roadways according to the ASDM standard." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, you're going to get
Man.
up there and you're going to tell everybody." Well, I was scared shitless, just like anybody else would be in these situations, right?
Yeah.
So literally feet to the fire, like I had no warning. And when I equate this stuff like public speaking or any type of fear anybody has, I've got 5 kids, man. So I talk about this stuff pretty openly. And I think the easiest way to overcome any fear is to just rip off the band-aid, because you see other people speak, they survived, they lived,
Yeah.
right? So that's kind of my little story there. It's just being thrown into a situation in front of peers. These were engineers, people that I kind of admired and looked up to. I didn't have their notoriety, their credibility, and who the fuck am I, get up here and
Hmm.
talk about this. But it didn't go extremely well. Let's just be honest. But I did it,
Yeah.
and I remember I talked up until about a lunch break, and my boss sat down with me, kind of put his arm around me, said, "Hey, not the greatest. You may want to slow down. You may want to slow down your cadence a little bit, right? You're kind of speeding things up. But that's what you want. You want to get that feedback." And it gave me, some good confidence, if you will, to say, okay, I did it. You know what I mean? Maybe I didn't want to do it. but I did it. And from that point moving forward, I just kind of tagged along on his ventures. Occasionally he would throw me up there and I would have a 5 minute little speaking part about maybe the results or the data or whatever, right? Or the process. And
Yeah.
then fast forward to starting my company 11 years ago now, all bets are off, man. I'm the guy now. It don't matter. Like I am the guy. I'm the one that has to do this. So that's really the long and short of it, man. How I got into public speaking, like literally public speaking in front of the public. So
Right. Oh man, yeah, that sounds rough. First of all, speaking for 2 hours for your first time on stage, that's a long time.
yeah, man. For those that can't see, man, I'm like covering my eyes. I don't even remember
Yeah,
how.
yeah,
It was more like, I'll be honest with you. The advantage of it though, it was more like demonstrative.
yeah.
So it's more like demonstrative. I was able to like use some tools, show interactive a little bit. Jump into the
Mhm.
computer. So that kind of saved me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, oh my lord. Now I can just rattle off this stuff obviously all day long, like the rest of us that are, we're in our industry. You become an expert in your craft, and but man, I'm always auditing what I'm doing and what I'm saying, and you don't always hit home runs,
Yeah.
when you're up there on any type of a stage.
Yeah.
But you show up with purpose. You go up there just to add value. You be real. You be yourself. We see so many engineers. You're in that type of space too, to some degree. I mean,
Mhm.
get it.
Mhm.
You know, they're going to come up to the microphone and be all stuffy, right? Like, if you look at the
Yeah.
facts, da, 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 and I'm just like, hey, what's up? I just try to go be me, and that helps out a lot. So,
Yeah, and it's funny if you're more relaxed like that, you're gonna be the one that ends up talking more. I actually have somebody I recorded the podcast, hasn't released yet, but he essentially talked about that when he actually worked for NASA at one point, and he was not as smart as the rest of them. He's probably honestly the dumbest one. I think he didn't you I think he might have used those words anyways, but he was definitely the least smart of them, but obviously still smart because he was an engineer at NASA. But because he could speak, they always had him go talk to the customers, or the customers would ask for him specifically, like, "Hey, we want you to come over here and speak to us. We don't want the engineer that knows everything because they don't know how to speak to us." So it's so important. But that's also scary with you starting by speaking in front of people that know their stuff. I mean,
oh
it's already hard to BS an audience, but whenever you're speaking to an audience that really knows their stuff, there's no BSing. I mean, they're gonna know whether you actually know your stuff or not. That's a scary spot to be too.
you're spot on with that, and I think like now that I can reflect back in 20 years ago, geez, it's crazy. It's like I knew that my boss at the time, he was more of a mentor, more of a father figure in that
Mhm.
type of in my life at that time. And I did know that it meant that he trusted me, right? And that
Yeah.
was helpful to say, hey, by the way, you're gonna go up there, he opened up the session, then he kind of jumped in there, took the coffee break at 10 o'clock, and he said, hey man, you're gonna go up there and do this.
Mm.
Gave me a little bit of a confidence booster, but it's still like when someone tells you that, you're like, it's all bets are off. You're like, oh shit, I don't care if you believe in me or not. Like, I'm not ready to do this.
Right?
But hey, man, it all worked out for the best. It kind of threw me out into that environment and kind of catapulted that start for me, to be
Mhm.
up there and be amongst people who I respected, in my industry. And, whether what whether they were really picking up what I was putting down is irrelevant, man. I just got through it. So
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's how it starts too. So many people are afraid of not being perfect when they start, so they never start. But you have to start. You have to get in those failures, those crappy reps, because if you don't get them in, you're never gonna get good. And
yeah.
you mentioned about going back and reviewing a lot of stuff that you do. How did you get into that? And if
Mm.
what does that look like to go back and review the speeches or video content that you do?
You know what? I will tell you, I strive for perfection, right? I think a lot of us in this high performer entrepreneurship, like we're striving for perfection, but at the
Mhm.
same time realizing that you don't need to be perfect. You want to strive for it, right? You want to strive for excellence.
Oh yeah.
And you realize that it's okay. It's okay to have a couple hiccups and failures in there. And I just take this all the way back to like being an athlete in high school and then coming out of school and continuing my baseball career for a minute. You're always trying to get better, right? That whole like
Mhm.
1% better each day, that was instilled into me a long time ago. So how do you get better? It's those reps that you just talked about. It's picking up on the little things and making the corrections, whether it's your mechanics in your baseball swing or it's the ums and oohs and stutters in your speech in your speaking. And even to this day, like I'm not a perfect speaker. Gosh, like I might stutter here and there. Sometimes I might speed up a little bit just because I get so excited about a topic or what I'm talking about. But what this has allowed me to do is when I watch myself, and it sucks to watch yourself sometimes, but it
It's so
allows you to pick
awkward.
up on that, right? You're like, I look like a fucking idiot up there today. You know what I mean? But you can kind
Hmm.
of pick up on it. And then the other side of that I would say is maybe not, and maybe preparation is a different, conversation or a different topic today, but like
Hmm.
getting into preparation, I'm absolutely that guy on the way to the town hall meeting or to the industry event that's in the car going over my slides, speaking out loud. I do it over and over again.
Hmm.
You know, the other thing to consider is like time is important. You don't want to be that guy. If you got a 30-minute slot, you're now in minute 48, you've cut into the other speakers.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I've been that guy just by trial and error. You're like, and you know, it's not intentional, but geez, I come off the thing and I'm like, oh my God, I just ran over 10 minutes. Like, oh
Yeah.
Jesus. Like, and then okay, now Jane, now thanks, James. Now we're gonna
Yeah.
bring up Philip, and Philip's already pissed off because I just cut into his time, right? So
Hmm.
there's all these things that go with speaking. It's above and beyond, just showing up. You know what I mean? You want to be prepared. You want to be real and authentic. You want to deliver. You want to add value. All those things. So the only way I know to really do that is to audit it. What gets measured
Hmm.
gets improved. That's a slide in every pavement management presentation I give. Because if we can understand what's happening with our roadways, right, and we can measure and track the behavior and degradation of them, we can make improvements. It's the same in this, man. Same
Yeah.
in this.
Oh yeah, for sure. So can you walk us a little bit more through that preparation? I think that's a really good thing because I know a lot of people they wait till the last minute to try and prepare for a speech. And obviously with your first speech, it didn't go well, but that's because you didn't know it was actually going to happen and you weren't very experienced versus like now, yeah, if I was like, "Hey, I need you to come to this council meeting. I want you to talk about pavement." Be like, "All right, I'll be there, man." The only
Yep.
thing you wouldn't know is our road conditions, obviously, but
Right.
you probably could be driving there and pick up some stuff and point out some things once you got there, but you could just spit it off, no problem. But for those that aren't at that point, or maybe they're speaking on something a little different, what does that preparation look like for you to,
Yeah, I can tell you, it's actually interesting nowadays, just because this is the only freaking career I've been in, man. You got entrepreneurship, you got business ownership, then you have like your specific industry, man. It's like I can actually go into a city and just say, hey, how much do you spend on your roads each year? They'll give me a number. How many miles do you have? And they're going to give me a number, right? And I'll tell them
hmm,
what the road conditions look like. It's because all of that experience all comes together, you know what I mean? To where
hmm,
I can kind of dial it in. But no, the preparation side of it is, I'll say it this way. I grew up in the 80s. Born in 1978, man. Like that sounds old, but born in 1978. I was a product of the 80s. And my father, man, this dude was the guy that bought the first camcorders, man. You had to hold them up on your thing. I'm a 10-year-old at the freaking zoo and I'm on camera and I hated it. I hated it. I was a shy kid. I walked around with my head down. I didn't have a whole lot of confidence as a kid growing up, man. And then whenever my dad birthday parties, the park, you can name it, playing football in the backyard, my soccer games, my baseball games, man, I'm on video. And the reality was I hated every second of it. And then, then the family would come over and, oh, let's watch Jimmy's baseball game. Like, fuck, I don't want to do that. So I had a very like hate relationship with being on camera as a kid. Now you translate that into growing up in the digital age. You know what I mean? I remember when a digital camera came out. Like that shit was blew my mind. You know
yeah,
what I mean? But the point is, slowly but surely, you start using media. You start using the technology. Okay, so I'm getting there. I promise. So now what happens is you get into your business, and now you're a business owner. You're trying to be a thought provoker, industry leader, and you realize what do all of the influence. I hate to use that word like influencers,
hmm,
but in your industry, the industry leaders, what are they doing? They're putting content out. I'm not just talking about Facebook, man. It could be a publication. The point is, you got to be forward facing. You got to be that product. You have to be the product or the service day one.
Yeah.
So I picked up on that. So I started putting myself out there. Go back about 7 years ago. I started my company 11 years ago. It took a while for me to get there, man. Slowly but surely. What did I do? I would just put the damn phone up here and I would just record myself talking. And it looked dumb. I looked horrible, right? I screwed up.
Mhm.
I didn't really care. I'm that guy. I would go, look in the bathroom mirror and just talk to myself. You know what I mean? I'm that guy again in the car. You see me in a blue TRX driving down the freeway talking. I'm probably practicing a presentation, you know. Maybe I have a 2-minute video. Like I was about to do a video today after this call for our upcoming um, mastermind event. That's another conversation,
Yeah.
but as we learned. But what do? I go outside, man. I jump on camera and I go through it as if I've done it before, right? So what you want to do in your preparation is you want everyone to absolutely, whether you really have or haven't, you want to give that impression that this ain't your first rodeo, right?
Hmm.
You remember Barry Sanders, the football player, man, from
Yeah.
back, dude. He crossed that end zone and handed the football to the referee. His motto was act like you've been there, right? And that was instilled in me. So, acting like you've been there and really been there are sometimes two different things. So that's the preparation, man. I want to get my thing down to the minute. If I've got 30 minutes, you bet James is going to talk for 30 minutes, not 28, not 29, unless there's 5 minutes for questions, you
Right.
know? And what you do is if it's a PowerPoint presentation, for example, or you got visual aids, you want to have a slide deck that you're very comfortable with, but you can roll with the punches.
Mm.
You can adjust it. I'll give you an example. I just gave for an industry talk on pavement management. I did a 2-hour presentation.
Man,
Okay.
two
I used
hours.
that same, yeah, 2 hours. It was pretty, doing a live demo on the back end and stuff like that. I took that same presentation 30 days later. I got asked by someone similar in a similar field, hey, can you give us a presentation on your pavement management? Yeah, what am I staring at? You got a 60-minute time slot. Yeah, great. Same presentation.
Hmm.
Same presentation. We're talking about dialing back 60 minutes, right?
Yeah.
My point is, this is my presentation, man. I've honed in on it, very comfortable with it. I just take a look at, okay, well, what's this audience really looking for? What points do I need to drive home, and what can I omit? What can I gloss over, if that makes sense?
Hmm.
So that's kind of my approach to this stuff in this day and age. Now, you want me to jump on stage and talk about, hey, James, go talk to this audience out here for the next 30 minutes on battling imposter syndrome. Oh, okay. Well, I've never really done that before per se. So you better bet I'm going to do everything I just told you in preparation wise. So that if I'm getting on stage to do that, it looks like
Mhm.
I've been there. It's a
Yeah.
topic that I'm familiar with. You know what I mean? I've dealt with it myself. And I think that's what comes out when you're speaking is if you don't have the experience, if you haven't been through the situation, it's hard to really get that to resonate with who your audience is, right? So,
Mhm. Hmm. Man, so many good things there. I appreciate you sharing that. One thing I do want to bring out though is you mentioned about having that same speech, and I know I've talked about this on other podcasts, but I want to bring it up again to reemphasize it. But you use the same speech at multiple places. Uh, is there something do you fear anything like that? Because I know working with some of my clients, they worry about, well, if I say the same thing, then I'm not gonna have the following come with me because it's like, oh, Philip says the same thing every single place he goes, or James says the same thing every place he goes. So people are gonna eventually just tune you out because it's always the same thing. I mean, how do you feel about that?
yeah, so I thought the same thing. And let's put an asterisk on this. So like when I say the same speech, mark my words, it is not word for word.
Yeah.
Right? You need to know, like, because the audience does make, just because let's say it's an engineering event, right? Maybe an
Hmm.
engineering event, but am I speaking to the Ohio chapter of affiliation? Am I speaking to the Tennessee chapter of affiliation? Right? Am I talking to the town of whatever or the city of, like, talking to the city of Columbus versus my hometown? Just two different audiences, even though it's a
Yeah.
Columbus city. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So, first and foremost, the same concept is there. When I sit back and started studying people who in leadership roles, guess what? Their message is basically the same. Philip, it's the
Mm.
same. It's maybe delivered a little bit differently depending on the day, depending on which point they want to make that day, right? Am I really trying to hammer home, the advantages of leveraging artificial intelligence to save time, effort, and efficiency on distressed data collection? Or am I truly trying to hammer home in this presentation how to maximize taxpayer dollars?
Yeah.
It's guess what? Both there's a slide on both of those in my presentation. So my point to you is this: when you kind of tailor it against your audience, you're going to have overlap. You're going to have, oh, Philip's here again. Hey, Philip just saw me speak last week. Here he is again at this other event. But
Hmm.
guess what? My message, although the concept's the same, you're going to pick up probably something a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
And I'll bring it full circle. What's really cool about this is I have something like I'm that guy that says potholes are a choice. Like you're like, wait a second, what do you mean potholes are a choice? They're out there on the roads every day. Yes, because we're neglecting the preventive maintenance component to that. So I
Mm.
finally said, F it, I'll be the guy that says it. I shit you not. I say this all the time. So my last travels, I was in the town of Lake Park, Florida, and the public works director gets up there and introduces me. And he says, this is James Golden, founder, CEO of Pavement Management Group. And I just wanted to say this because it really resonates with me. He famously quotes, and he said, you know what, maybe infamously quotes that potholes are a choice. I just wanted to get that out there. I believe in it, and he's going to talk about it. So
Nice.
yeah, so it's just like, okay, I'll be that guy. I'll own that one. So it's like I did think the same. It's like, but think about like our content creation.
Hmm.
Both of us are pretty active out there putting information out. In some cases, we're sometimes saying the same thing month to month, week to week, but the delivery is a little different. It has a different
Hmm.
vibe to it, different connotation, different cadence in what you're saying, whatever. So my point is, absolutely, if you're an expert in an area, say the same message. Maybe find a few different points to hammer home each time,
Hmm.
but I'm perfectly fine with that. I agree with it. All the greats that I know that I look up to, I've heard Milet speak on stage multiple times. Guess what? It's the same damn speech. He's
Yeah.
told the same damn story of his kid. He sucked at golf. They're in the tournament. He battles back on the back nine and wins it. But he says it a little bit different each time. And guess
Mm.
what? I keep leaning in every time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's my point to it.
Mm. Yeah, and you can get something different from those speeches every time. Like you said, you've heard it before, so now you can focus on something maybe that you missed, or you're like, okay, I've heard this, and oh wait, I hadn't heard that, and all of a sudden your brain perks up, your ears are listening more intently because like, wait, I didn't hear that last time, or maybe I didn't pay attention to that last time, and it's very similar with we see the big brands like Coke and Nike and all them. They're always talking about their shoes. They're always talking about their soda product. Like, but they're always talking about those same exact things, putting out that same exact message, just with a little twist. So you're
You
right.
got
And
it.
we have to put that out there. And I appreciate you kind of driving that point home because I know I've been guilty of that too, where I thought, oh, I've got to come up with something completely different every time. And actually, I was starting to think that a little bit when I started really working on some of the stages I've been starting to get on everything. I'm like, do I need to come up with something different? And I'm like, you know what? No, I don't. I need to come up with the same core message and then to cater it to the audience, like you said, which is perfect. Yes, it's always about catering to that audience and what they need to hear there. And so
Exactly.
most, yeah. And if you have that strong message and like you talk about pavement, I'm not going to have you come. I can't think of an opposite. I don't, I'm not going to have you come to like our jet ski event or something because we're not putting pavement on the lake. Like,
No, you want
so
me
I'm
to
not going
show
to
up and
invite you
talk
to go
about
speak
the
at that.
right, and that's where it's getting interesting. Like when you get into this entrepreneurship game, everyone's success journey is what it is. So
Yeah.
yeah, sure. Now it's easier to from a message perspective. Yeah, sure. I can go share business related stories. I can go share
Mhm.
content creation, marketing. Building a team, core values. Like there's all these subjects now. Being a
Yeah.
business owner. But you're right. Like why in the hell am I going to go to the same, like a public works affiliation and I'm going to go talk about robotic lawnmowers? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
to save costs on, like, I can't do that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not my area, right? Stay in my lane, like literally pun intended. I say it all the time. Like James, man, can you collect the sidewalk information? I could, but I won't.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, okay, well, why not? I'm like, well, we're a pavement management group. The flagship product's called Road Insights.
Hmm.
We do a very good job at that. We niche down to meet that need in the market. you know?
Mm.
Same reason why, for the most part, Taco Bell makes tacos. I mean, Burger King makes burgers. And guess what happens? All these companies, they try things. We're going to bring back the nacho fries. Like, well, I'm just making shit up. I got
Yeah.
teenage kids, man. They love the nacho fries, right? They get pissed off when they come off the menu. But the
Yeah.
bottom line is like, it's okay to niche down. You don't need to be the
Mhm.
jack of all trades in there trying to throw it all out there, So,
Yeah.
but at the same time, like when the industry is asking you for things, or maybe it's like, hey, I heard you pick up on sidewalks in your speech, how it's an asset. Can you elaborate on that? Okay. Yeah, maybe I can. Maybe that's an area I need to put a little bit more time and attention and focus to because my audience is
Mhm.
asking for it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. But how do you feel about niching down? A lot of people when they're first starting out, they worry about that, or especially in a speech, like I don't want to get too granular because then I'm going to tune everybody out. But how do you feel about that?
from a speech perspective, are we talking about like
Yeah, I
speaking or
mean,
just in
yeah, let's
general?
go
Like,
speech perspective. I mean, I know business, you kind of mentioned a little bit, but from a speaking
mhm.
perspective,
Yeah, I
getting
I
granular.
like that. So let's take a look at, let's say, let's just use an example. Let's say you and I are speakers at an event with three others, right? And let's
Mhm.
just, for the sake of this conversation, let's say it's maybe an event geared towards startup companies or young
Mm.
entrepreneurs or whatever. It's a team of one, right? Well, all five of us are going to have a general, mission. I mean, that's why they hired us, right? You're going to
Mhm.
talk about X, I'm going to talk about Y. So what you want to be able to do is, in my opinion, is say, okay, what's that one thing? Well, I said imposter syndrome earlier, right? So I'll
Mhm.
just roll with that. What's that one area of imposter syndrome that I can kind of niche down to and really capture their attention and
Mm.
really come at from a position of passion, add value, right? And really start to get my audience thinking about that one thing. Or if you're presenting a solution, of how you overcame imposter syndrome. Instead of going, well, you could do X, here's my PowerPoint presentation. I've got 65 bullet points of what you can do to tackle imposter syndrome. Maybe it's okay to have that and talk about, but what I would do is kind of niche down into one of those areas and let that
Yeah.
be the message for the 30 minutes or the hour or wherever you're up there with, right? Because
Mhm.
that's what they're going to gravitate and pull towards. Because again, even though you're there to add value, you're also there because you want people to remember you, right? You want to be,
Yeah.
man, I got to talk to that James guy from my city. I got to talk to Philip about overcoming my fear of speaking, right?
Mhm.
I got to go lead. I just got leveled up to project manager my company, man. I don't know how to speak in front of people, but I see Philip out there paving the way. Let me go call him.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my thought process on like kind of niching down. Like it's okay. You don't want to be up there being just so general that when you walk away, the audience is like, "Oh, okay, that was all right. Who's up next?" You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I will just give you an example of that, by the way. So in my pavement management presentations to my audiences, I say this. I say, "Hey, it's like slide 5, 6. Hey, this slide right here. If you take away anything from what I say today, right? I want it to be this right here. Pavement management is applying the right treatment to the right road at the right time. If that's the only thing you get out of my presentation, I've done my job." You know what I mean?
Mm.
Then we go on with it because that's going to resonate with them and it makes them think a little bit differently about it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I appreciate you sharing that. I do want to go back to a uniqueness that you have of speaking to these municipalities and the government agencies or government entities. How is that? I mean, that's got to be different than is. I know you've talked in front of entrepreneurs and you've done coaching sessions and things like that. But how is that talking in front of like those government entities and the cities and everything?
well, I'll tell you, so when I go back to earlier in my career, I was just like anybody else. I would kind of get up there and when I was starting my company, go back 11
Mhm.
years, I would get up in front of the audience, which is typically the mayor, the vice mayor, council members. You've got the public directly behind you who came in to
Mhm.
hear about what you're doing. you know and I would pretty much just kind of state the facts, like after we did the analysis, our conclusion is XYZ, and I would just kind of go through it. And then I kind of realized, you do it enough, it's like, man, like this really isn't hitting on anything. I'm just kind of up
Mhm.
here telling stuff. And then there was like this epiphany. I want to say it was Ed Milet through like a speech, and he said
Mhm.
something along the lines of facts tell and stories sell.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, that's good. That's
Mm-hmm.
good. I need to be out here, you know, telling the story and be that
Mm.
storyteller of how like the road might have a pothole, but if we, here's a case study, whatever. So my point is, it was initially, I just thought I was speaking to the government. But when you unpack that and realize, you know what, that mayor, she wants to get out of here too. She's got dinner with her family potentially.
Mm-hmm.
This council member maybe has to go back to his business because these are all in the evenings, right?
Mm.
So my point to you is I started breaking that down and not focusing on the city of, and focused on, well, that's Mayor Sessions,
Mm.
that's council member Ward, So what I would do, I would go to you can go to any city, town, borough, whatever you want's website, and you can see the people for who they are. They're real people. So I'm like, oh shit, well, this board is made up of X, Y, and Z. Here's all the people on it.
Mm.
So that when I show up, it's kind of familiar. I don't
Mm.
know them yet, but at least I've seen their face or I've read their bio. So I'm just doing my homework is my point. So as soon
Yeah.
as you realize, like, and I tell people this all the time, it's like, yeah, I'm talking to the government. I'm talking to their Facebook Live, but you're really still talking to people. They have to understand where all this is coming from. It's no different from being in an audience of entrepreneurs or anything
Yeah.
else. So hopefully that makes some sense. It kind of, that's the other thing that I get too. I'll just have fun with it. They're like, "Oh man, you're in government contracting. That's awesome, man. You got guaranteed contracts." I'm like, "Yeah, but they don't pay on time like you think they do." And I'm on net
Right.
30 and 60 terms, so that's
Mm.
fun to deal with. So the
Yeah.
government world is interesting, but at the end of the day, they're just people. There's
Mm.
someone on the procurement side that's gonna wake up and go to work today, just like you or me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They gotta go, change a diaper. They gotta go do whatever they're doing. They're human beings, man, even though they're acting on behalf of your city or local government. So just get human with it. It's kind of where I go
Yeah,
with
no, no, that was great insight, man, and definitely more than I expected. Because you're right, that was a great message right there. They're just human at the end of the day, so it doesn't matter if you're talking to a government official, if you're talking to the CEO, if you're talking to a line worker, whoever you're talking to, they're just a person at the end of the day. Don't let that title or that position of authority be something that holds you back from speaking to them like a person. Because
it.
everybody
100%.
wants to be spoken to like a person. Nobody wants to be groveled to, and nobody really wants you to be talking like you're above them.
That's
Either
right.
one, people don't want that. But I am curious, how obviously this is part of your business, but how did you start getting into these spaces to be able to speak and everything? Because it's
Hmm.
not exactly like what we think of, like getting on stage in front of thousands of people and having this speech, but you are still getting in front of people and talking about your business. And my belief is that we should get better at speaking so we can spread our message more and be able to grow our business, which then ends up growing our impact and our income. So how did you get in front of these municipalities and everything to start growing your business more and more?
Yeah, well said. I really like that. I agree with that, by the way. So, for me, it started off as a necessity, pretty much at the end of all of my deliverables. At some point, I'm going into a council meeting the first Tuesday of the month at 6 p.m. And I'm going to talk about the study, add value to what they could be doing, how they can save taxpayer dollars. You get the idea, right? And then
Mhm.
that kind of spins off into, then you have industry events. Just all of us have industry events,
Yeah.
big shows. There's a big one. The American Public Works Association is like a national, affiliation. All things public works. What is public works? It's everyone in your local cities that are taking care of your utilities, your infrastructure, your parks. All those things that we enjoy as citizens, but we
Mhm.
often don't think about. When you have a water line break and now you got to go to a hard boil situation, right? There's real people out there digging that shit up and fixing it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
trying to get it back. Because guess what? Again, humanize it. They also live in that same city. They don't want to go boil their damn water any longer than you do. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Um, you kind of humanize it a little bit. So the point is, I started taking a look at these national events and then local events. So for me, it started out with just joining the local Ohio chapter affiliation. So
Mhm.
there's 50 states, there's 50 chapters, and then statewide they have local chapters as well. So you have like Ohio Northeast, Ohio Central. You get the idea, right?
Mhm.
So I just simply joined it. And then
Mm.
I asked, how can I get more involved here? What are some things that I can do to help out on this board? You know what I mean? Then you just go be a servant. I did some work. You start to make more connections, right? And then they start seeing really more what you do, and they say, "Hey, would you mind running a lunch and learn on this topic?" Yeah, to our members. Yeah, what the hell? I'll jump on here, run a lunch and learn. Especially 3 years ago and prior when you actually did lunch and learns.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm not now we just DoorDash and we're on Zoom with 50 people. But
Hmm.
you get the idea, man. So I started small. I just, dipped the toe in the water a little bit, let people get to know me, see what the value I bring to the industry, right? And then it
Mm.
just grew. And then it gets to a point where I'll give you a great example. In my opinion, I'm an industry leader in what I do,
Hmm.
and others will say that. It wasn't until last year that my abstract, you have to submit. If you want to go speak on a national stage at these events, you have to submit an abstract. What are you going to
Oh,
talk about?
wow.
What's the value, right? You have to
Hmm.
present it to them so they can choose you for a technical session or whatnot. I shit you not, dude. 4 years ago, I applied every year like clockwork. Apply, denied, apply, denied, apply, denied. Last year, finally got accepted, my first national speaking gig,
Nice.
right?
Congrats.
But that's how you do it, man. You go add value at a smaller level, right? And you kind of just keep
Hmm.
working your way through it in terms of affiliations and stuff like that. Now, when you keep submitting, now what happens? Well, because of that one event, man, because I didn't quit, I kept submitting. Now these other things you're seeing me go and do in these other areas, it's because I'm being
Hmm.
asked. I'm being asked, hey, would you mind being the expert channel on pavement management? We're having a 4-hour workshop session on pavement preservation. Yeah, I'll be the guy. You
Mm.
know, yeah, I'll,
Man,
I'll
that's
come do that.
awesome.
I'll come do that. And then what happens to I think you were getting into this. Now all I do, I was at the Florida County Association of Engineers meeting. It's an annual
Mm.
meeting. It's a 5-day event. They do it in Orlando at the Orlando Convention Center. There's like 80 people in that room, man. They're all county commissioners. And guess what? They're all qualified decision makers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Oh,
you
that's a
just
great
show up,
space to be.
man. You just show up and be like, what you want from me? Hey, James, 30 minutes. You talk about the value of microsurfacing and preservation. Yeah, I got you. Let's go. Again, my big overall speech, niche down. This is what I'm going to
Hmm.
hammer on, right? I
Yeah.
leave the meeting. I don't, you're not there to pitch yourself. You're there to add value. I leave the meeting, picked up 3 projects on the back end of that,
There we
right?
go.
Because you're in a position of authority now.
Hmm.
But it's rare for people to just be able to go hit the big stage. If you look at anybody who's in a leading role on
Hmm.
stage, they started somewhere.
Yeah.
Ryan Stewman is a mentor of mine. He's a mentor of yours.
Hmm.
I'm in his Apex Executives program, man. I love his story because it's just a story of perseverance. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh, yeah.
you and I have both said this to each other. Are you ready for this one? Sometimes you got to go make your own table.
Hmm.
I've tried. You go knock on doors, hey man, can I come on in here? I want to come add value to this. If they don't want you, they don't want you. So
Yeah.
what you can do is you got 2 options. You can tuck your tail between your legs and say, man, this ain't meant for me. Or you can say, no, I'm gonna go carve my own way.
Yeah.
You do it, I do it. And that's what people need to take away from that. Like if you are being called to be on a stage of some sort or on a Zoom call in front of 50 people, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you gotta be comfortable with that with yourself and say, you know what? If Philip's not inviting me onto his show, man, maybe I had to go do something to draw his attention,
Yeah.
right? Whatever, you get the idea.
Oh,
So
yeah. No, man, so many great takeaways there, man. See, I'll definitely need to go back probably the last 5 minutes and re-listen to that. I mean, so much information there to help you get on stage. And you're right. Sometimes it's about creating that stage for you to be able to get on that stage. And people start noticing if you're willing to go all in on yourself, if you're willing to invest in yourself, people will start being willing to invest into you. But when you're creating a stage, that means you're taking the risk. So somebody else is creating the stage, they're taking the risk. And if they're not inviting you, that must mean that either you're not top of mind for them or they don't think you're ready if they know that you are eager to get on stage.
I
So
like that you
go.
said that.
Yeah,
Can I piggyback off of that?
yeah, man, go for it.
Because, dude, I love that. You know, all of us, especially those probably listening to this podcast because they have an interest in public speaking. or they just have a huge fear of it and are trying to conquer it, right?
Yeah.
You know, dude, I've been there. I know you've been there. There are definitely some stages I love to have a shot at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, you don't ever want to go ask for that, because you're
Hmm.
right. That individual who's running that and running that workshop, running that event, right? They're risking a lot.
Yeah.
So there's a reason why whoever's on that stage or who they've picked, it's there for a reason, is my point. So the point is, if you do see yourself on someone's stage, you got to be a position of value. Like, you got to be saying or doing something that draws that attention, where they can look at you and say, okay, all right, I saw Philip do this, man. I know, like, and trust him now. You
Hmm.
know what? When that opportunity arises, it's just like being in the bullpen. It's the ninth inning, man. We're down by 2 runs. We need the closer to come on and get this done. So it's like,
Hmm.
next man up, next woman up, next person up. Let's go. So that's how I look at this. Is my industry is my industry. I like being that. I'm ready to start making that transition into other areas of my life, because I am a business owner of 11 years. Jesus, like,
Hmm.
not everybody can say that. That's pretty cool. But
Yeah.
it's not a brag, man. It's just my life. I got 5 kids. I got a blended family. I've got all these failures. I've got all these successes. You know what I mean? And now
Hmm.
it's like time, like, okay, now I'm comfortable with starting to share all of that stuff. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
share it out there, and you don't need everyone that you're casting that out to say, oh, I got to sign up with James, or I got to go sign up with Philip. You need the one. You need the one that says, man, I really like what you're putting down, man. How can I get more of this? How can I get more
Mm.
of that? And then you go all in on that person, and then 2, and then 5, and then whatever it is, man. You just keep working it. So that's how you can kind of do a little bit of both, man. You want to go beyond someone's stage? Well, great. How are you going to add value to that person? Number one.
Mm.
Uh, or if you think you're doing that, you think you're doing the work, and you're not being called upon, that's okay too. Maybe it just means that, to your point, you're not right in their eyes for that, or you're not top
Mm.
of mind still. Great. Now go perform your own risk. Go
Yeah.
create your own event. I know you've done it. Go create your own
Yeah.
event. Go put yourself out there in front of everybody. And guess what? You're going to get a taste of what that's like too, by the way, aren't you? Because now
Hmm.
you're the event. You might be as the keynote speaker, but you're also the event coordinator. You're
Yeah.
also dealing with everything on the front and the back end that goes with that. So I think that's a great approach.
Oh yeah. And I'll say to that, man, there's been a lot of eyes. We're in Apex together, and I'm in the entourage group, which is the lowest group. And I've had some eyes from the executive level start looking at me. And there have been people that I've seen, I know about, I know they're doing the work. And simply because I put myself out there to create an event, they're starting to ask questions about it. And it's been pretty
Right.
cool to see that. But it's because I was willing to stick my neck out there on my own and do something. And I'll be honest, the event isn't going to be where it's at, where I wanted it to be at with attendance. It'll be decent. It's not going to be 0 people are just the speakers, but it's not up to, like, I wanted it to be about 100 people, and it's not there. But hey, that happens. That's part of it. It's the learning process. So no, I know what to do next. I know how to learn from this, and then I can respect other people that are doing events. But then when I created the stage, I had other people reaching out to me, and I had to be the gatekeeper to that too, and protect that audience. Because there are some people, and they may have been good, but I also had to look at it. Okay, well, they're out of state, so I've got to be calculated, because maybe they won't make me pay for them to travel. Maybe they will. I mean, there's just so many variables within that, and trying to make sure. And actually, my 2 out-of-state people, they're having some issues with traveling. They're going to make it in, but they're like, I'm having to juggle the schedule already for my 2 out-of-state people. So that's a thing as well that's difficult. And it's not that they're not trying to respect I mean, they definitely respect my time and my event and everything, but just things happen. So how are you going to roll with that? Like, one guy, he's got to leave early, and I had him later in the event, and now I put him in earlier in the event, so I can make sure that he gets a speech in, he can hang out for a bit, and he can leave when he needs to, instead of, oh, I'm watching the time, I got to hurry up, I'm about to have to leave, because he's got to leave like way before the event ends. So it's just like trying to juggle that. I mean, the event, when we're recording this, it's 2 days from now. He just told me
Uh,
this morning. And so here I am changing the lineup, and then they go and communicate that. So there's so many pieces of that. So definitely, if you want to gain some authority and a lot of experience, go create that stage. build that table for yourself. Don't try and get a seat at somebody else's table. They're going to ask you to come to the table if they want you there. So create that table and invite the people that you want. And I guarantee those people at the table you want to be at, they're going to come to you, because that's literally what happened to me. I had one person that I've had my eye on. We talk about Dream 25, and they approached me asking me some questions where I think there might be something in the background going on. I know we talked about this offline before, but we'll see what happens from there.
Yeah.
But I created that table, I created that stage, and the questions started coming up, the conversations started happening. So go create that stage.
Yeah, man, I love that because, when your last name is Golden, you get every
It's a
golden
golden opportunity.
man. So it's like, okay, so I'm privy to that. I'm picking that up from a young age. So it's like, we have to realize though that those opportunities are created.
Hmm.
A lot of people think that opportunity is something that you just go like this,
Hmm.
well, I've paid my dues. I'm 44
Yeah.
and I still don't have any opportunity. It's like,
Hmm.
no, you have to have that abundance mindset, obviously. So from my perspective is go create your opportunities. How do you
Yeah.
do? This is a prime example. You know what I mean? You have to get out there and get in front of what you're trying to achieve. Fear, right? All fears are solved by diving in head first, surviving it,
Yes.
and then reflecting on it and say, well, how do I do it better? How do I get better? Or fuck that, I don't ever want to do that again. But I tried it, right?
And
And
now. Yeah.
like for all I know, I get up on a stage someday talking about something I'm like, you know what? I didn't really enjoy that.
Mm.
Hey, but I did it. Whatever. You get
Hmm.
man. So it's like
Exactly.
golden opportunities, man. Like you just nailed it. You got to go create them, you
Hmm.
know? And then as you're doing the work that we all talk about, people are going to come into your ecosystem as a result. And initially, you're like, oh, this is flattering as hell, man. This dude's in
Hmm.
my DMs, man. I thought I've been trying to get a hold of this guy, or I would love to talk with this guy. But guess what? Maybe you exhaust that opportunity and you're like, that's not what I thought this was going to be.
Yeah,
Hey,
exactly.
man, that was cool. Like Dream 25, I don't know about you, but like my Dream 25 probably looks a little different than most people because it's a combination of a firm
Hmm.
and then an individual. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
But sometimes you go through these and then you have that discovery call with somebody or they reached out to you and you're flattered and you get done with the call and you're like, not what I thought it was cracked up to be. So you
Yeah.
have to be able to say, like, even though this was an opportunity you thought knocked, you exhaust the opportunity, man. You go through it, but be willing to say, no, this isn't for me. That's okay
Mm.
too. You
Mm.
know, I did. Geez, man, I go back, 5 years ago and people knocking on my door. I'm listening to every opportunity. My problem was I was more of a yes guy, like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. I'm in. I got you. You want my cash? You know what I mean? And it's like, next thing you know, you go through and like, man, that was a horrible experience. I didn't like
Mm.
that. You know what I mean? So twofold, right? I learned
Yeah.
from it. But what I really learned, Philip, along this line is like, it's okay to say no.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But hear it out. Hear out the opportunity. You
Yeah.
don't have to
Definitely.
just because someone on your Dream 25 reached out to you doesn't mean you are obligated to go through with whatever they have in mind. You know what I mean? You got to make sure
Mm.
you're true to yourself and it resonates within your own core values and what you want to achieve. So anyway,
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That's a good point too for the younger people in the audience. Hear out the opportunity first. Don't just automatically turn it down, unless if you know it's something stupid like somebody, hey, you want to make money on the side, and it's usually a crypto person in your DM, then you can turn that down. But
yes.
if it's a normal person, normal situation, yeah, hear it out first. Don't just automatically deny it, because you could be surprised. You could definitely
Yep.
be surprised. But I want to ask you one last question. James, you've given so much value, but I want to hear, what is that message that you would share if you could only share one message for the rest of your life? I bet that's gonna be pretty good.
Well, I hope this is good, man. So you can go
No
ask
pressure.
every one of my kids, and they will recite it word for word. Dream big, work hard, become legendary.
Mm.
I wish that was instilled at me at a young age. It's very straightforward. We're taught when we're young, we're dreamers, aren't we? We're kids, man,
Mhm.
heads in the
Mhm.
clouds, blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden you go through society and conforming. Sit in your seat. Don't do that. I mean, I'm a dad. I did it with my
Yeah.
kids. You have a young, a youngin, man. Like, this is a great
Mhm.
opportunity. I got kids that are going to be 25 next week. That's
Hey,
crazy, man.
yeah.
So his dad, me, was a very different dad than my my youngest 12-year-old daughter,
Mhm.
right? Just through learning experiences, man. But no, dream big, like cast a big vision. You know what I mean? It's okay to
Mhm.
think big. Turn up your financial thermostat, turn up your passion thermostat, man, whatever it is. Then you got to go chase it. You owe it to yourself. Like, if I want to be the Amazon fulfillment center of reliable, standardized condition data for all the roadways in America. There's 4 million of them, by the way. It's a big number,
Man.
right?
Yeah.
How do I get there? Right? How do I get there?
One road at a
I
time.
have to one road at a time. We say it 1 mile at a time. 1 mile at a time over here, right? Quality over
Mm.
quantity. 1 mile at a time. Pave the way. All this stuff, but you have to live by it, and you have to work hard to get there.
Yeah.
Working hard is a combination of smart and just roll up the sleeves and get it done. You got to do both. There is no. My daughter asked me, "What's that expression?" Hey, Dad, what's that expression? It's work smart, not hard, right? I'm like, it's not my expression. You got to be able to do both if you want to have any
Mm.
form of success, right? And
Yeah.
then become legendary, man. Like, first of all, I grew up again in the 80s and 90s, so I'm a huge Michael Jordan fan. There is no debate. He is the GOAT. Anybody come at me, that's fine. I'll put up my phone number out there, right? You Phillips see me enough in action, man. I got all the Jordans, man. I'm a shoe guy. I love them, but become legendary is my way of taking that philosophy, and that's like that legacy component to me. So, like, if you cast a big net out there, a big vision, you can get people behind it. You see them working, they see you working hard towards that vision, right? Not take, we're going to take L's on the success journey, right?
Yeah.
Fall down, come back for more, keep going. You'll get to a point in a position where you become that legendary status in your industry, man. You know what I mean? um,
Mhm.
Most people quit at some point and they don't get there, and it's all because of just they had enough. They got knocked down one too many times. So that's that fighter mentality that I have. That's that competitive spirit. Become legendary. It's not just like, oh, I want my name on a building. That's not what I'm talking about, man.
Mhm.
For me, I go back to how Michael Jordan competed every single day to be the greatest at his craft. Just because I'm in pavement management, great, I'll go be the best one out there you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
and that was told to me when I was young, man. I was fortunate. Like, man, you can go do whatever you want. They tell us that as kids until you get a little bit older and, like, just kidding, sit down, shut up, don't touch that. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I want to try to reinstill that in people. I
Yeah.
don't care if you're 40. It's never too late to go chase your dream, because I will tell you, losing my dad in 2019 suddenly, like, your parents, some of us, our parents are our superheroes.
Mhm.
I never, my dad passed away from a sudden brain aneurysm. It's boom, just like that. He's not here. Like, that's
Yeah.
crazy. It's freaking crazy, man.
Same
But
thing with mine.
you same.
Yeah. Abdominal
Oh,
though.
oh, wow. Like,
Yeah.
so talk about like a hero just gone in an
Yeah.
instant, right?
Yeah.
Like, that'll fuck with you a little bit.
Mhm.
But my point is, it allowed me to start really thinking about that more and more. And, like, I have days
Same.
just like anybody else where I'm done. I've
Mhm.
fired myself and rehired myself more times than I can count in this game.
Yeah.
But dream big, work hard, become legendary. It's my saying I coined several years ago. It keeps me going, you know. And I will tell anybody listening too, like, it's cool to, like, find someone else's mantra.
Mhm.
Like the Mamba mentality. I love Kobe Bryant too. I love the Mamba mentality. But you know what? That's his.
Yeah.
Right? I want to develop my own, so I have my own creed that I'm trying to live by every day. So that's
Mm.
that's kind of where I'm at.
There we go. Love it, man. Yeah, that was great stuff for sure. If people want to follow up with you, they want to see how to pave their own road, pave their own path. How do they find you? How do they get in touch with you?
Easiest thing to do is just go to jamesgolden.me. It's just a one pager, man. My bio's on there that you read, right? My
Mm-hmm.
headshot's on there. You want to see my business holdings? They're there. You know what I mean? A little bit of PR stuff is on there. It's just a great way to connect with me. You can see all my profiles. Feel free, man. Go follow me. Go reach out to me on a DM. Like, I am that guy that'll read it. legitimately, as long as you're not pitching me Forex and crypto right now. You know
Right.
what I mean? Well, there's a couple out there that I admire that, hey, they come into my DMs, I'm probably listening, but you get
Yeah.
the idea, man. I just try to be a steward for entrepreneurship, for those
Hmm.
paving their own way. One thing that I like to say is like pave the way or get out of the way. Like not all of
Mm.
us are meant to be leaders, and that's okay. Leadership is a huge responsibility. I didn't really understand what a true leader was until just a few years ago. That's sad, but at the end of the day, we only know what we know.
Yeah.
So, if leadership is something that's of important to you, and let's be honest, if you're getting on a stage, you're trying to become a leader. There's
Yeah.
no other reason why you're trying to speak, right? So, for me, the two go hand in hand: leadership, speaking, public stages, all that stuff, man. So, yeah, I just try to be a good steward for that stuff, man. I'm happy to have conversations with people, do some discoveries, add some value any way that I can.
Yeah, man, you definitely are, and I appreciate all the conversations we've had on and offline and everything, and
Same.
really appreciate this. And definitely go follow James. He puts out a lot of great content. It's not all just about payment, I promise. So if you're
No.
not into all that, if you're not in the government agencies, you'll get a lot of value from him as well, and not just on the payment. But you might just start being like, that pothole that makes me so mad. I know a guy that can fix that, and you might be able to make that change in your
That's right.
city. But James, man, I appreciate you coming on. It's been a blast.
It's been a pleasure, man. I appreciate you. Humble to be on here with you, and I appreciate you, man. We'll talk soon.
Yeah. Yes, sir.